I love this event, but your point's well taken. We shouldn't prop up Xi Jinping. This will become known as the Genocide Olympics. What's taking place in Western China is nothing short of genocide. We shouldn't forget, too, this virus that you were talking about at the beginning of your show came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Almost certainly that is, this virus was foisted on the world. And then second, not only are we propping up one of the greatest human rights violating leaders in all of recorded history, but we're putting our athletes in a very difficult place. Imagine one of them wants to say something about Tiananmen Square, or they want to talk about the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I promise you the chance of them getting their exit visa will be low. And those athletes should all know, too, that Beijing is the most surveilled city in the world. Whether it's their cell phones or their iPads or whatever it is, or something they're saying to someone else, you can bet that the Chinese Communist Party will be able to track everything they do, every place they go, and everything they say, and they will record it. It will be used for Chinese Communist Party purposes for time ongoing.
Oprichter en voorzitter van het World Economic Forum. En hij heeft ook een boek geschreven met als pakkende titel COVID-19, The Great Reset. En mijn vraag aan de demissionair minister-president is: hoe beoordeelt hij de inhoud van dit boek?
De minister-president.
Ik ken het boek niet, voorzitter. Maar ik zou de Vermeijden willen adviseren om niet al te veel in al die conspiracy-theorieën. Ik kijk ze ook allemaal op YouTube. Dat is fascinerend hoe dan uitgelegd wordt dat 9/11 niet heeft plaatsgevonden of dat het allemaal anders zit. Ontzettend knap in elkaar gezet, maar het is meestal wat het is, een conspiracy-theorie.
De heer Van Meijeren.
Nou, het verbaast mij dat de eerste vraag die ik aan de heer Rutte stel sinds ik beëdigd ben als Kamerlid direct wordt beantwoord. Dank u wel, maar het verbaast mij dat die eerste vraag direct wordt beantwoord met een leugen. Ik heb namelijk een brief in mijn hand, die dateert van 26 november 2020. En dat is een brief van de heer Rutte aan de heer Klaus Schwab, waarin hij de heer Schwab bedankt voor het toezenden van zijn boek. En dit noemt een hoopvolle analyse voor een betere toekomst. Zou de heer Rutte nog even kunnen graven in zijn geheugen? Het is nog geen half jaar geleden, dus ik weet niet hoe lang uw herinneringen actief blijven. Maar waarschijnlijk is dit nog wel ergens op te graven. En mijn eerste vraag opnieuw te beantwoorden en nu eerlijk.
Nou, het eerlijke antwoord is dat dat een nette brief is. Waarin je helaas niet alle boeken die je toegestuurd krijgt van kaft tot kaft kunt lezen, maar wel degene die je toestuurt een vriendelijke brief terugstuurt.
Nou, dan zegt de heer Rutte dus eigenlijk dat hij niet heeft gelogen tegen mij, maar tegen de heer Klaus Schwab. Maar laat ik dan hier direct alsnog de vraag stellen. De heer Klaus Schwab, die pleit in zijn boek voor het resetten van onze wereld, om onze nationale parlementaire democratie te vervangen door een globale technocratie. Hij pleit ervoor dat er een einde komt aan privébezit. En de heer Rutte is er kennelijk niet eens van bewust dat hij dit een hoopvolle boodschap voor een betere toekomst heeft genoemd. Hoe is het mogelijk dat de heer Rutte een waardeoordeel hecht aan een boek met een neocommunistische boodschap, terwijl hij dat boek niet eens gelezen heeft?
This is the entire choir. You just saw representatives from every faction in Washington, from Adam Schiff to Dan Crenshaw, not as different as they seem, and all the dummies in between. And all of them are promoting war against Russia on behalf of our new and deeply beloved ally, the government of Ukraine. Vladimir Putin is our most dangerous enemy, they scream. We can't let him hurt Ukraine. So it turns out Russiagate was actually more effective even than we'd realized. The Steele dossier has been debunked, but in Washington, the theme remains in force. Russia, 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 Russia is bad. What is this about exactly? Well, obviously it's the usual collection of children falling for the usual collection of lies, but why this specific lie? On Tuesday, we tried to get to the bottom of this because it seems like it matters. We spoke to a man called Clint Ehrlich. As Ehrlich pointed out, there are a lot of factors here driving us toward war over Ukraine, but one of them, a central one, is NATO. So what is NATO, and what is the purpose of NATO since the fall of the Soviet Union 30 years ago that NATO was designed as a bulwark against? Well, no one can answer that question, not one person. And yet the same people who cooked up the Iraq War are now insisting that Ukraine must join NATO anyway. That would mean putting American military hardware right on Russia's border, and Russia doesn't want that any more than we would want Russian missiles in Tijuana, hence the tension. Now the irony, as Clint Ehrlich pointed out, is that NATO doesn't even want Ukraine to join. In other words, the whole thing is nuts. It serves no American interest whatsoever. It is yet another manufactured crisis, this one devised by restless, power-hungry neocons in Washington looking for another war.
Speaker, I think the reputation of our country around the world is built on the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, if not in all major economies. It is built on having the fastest growth, therefore, in the G7, and it is built on our ability to bring our allies together to stand up against Vladimir Putin. That is what the world is focused on. That is what I'm focused on, and that, frankly, is what he should be focused on.
U.S. and its Western allies on Tuesday of ignoring Russia's security concerns and deliberately creating a scenario designed to lure Russia into war. In his first direct public comments on the Ukraine crisis for nearly 6 weeks, a defiant Putin showed no signs of backing down from security demands that Western countries have called non-starters and possible excuses to launch an invasion.
We already can see that fundamental Russian concerns were ignored.
Russia is demanding that NATO halt any further enlargement, bar Ukraine from ever joining the alliance, and pull back forces and weaponry from Eastern European countries. Putin said Washington is not primarily concerned with Ukraine's security, but with containing Russia.
That is the problem. In this context, Ukraine is just a tool to reach this goal. It can be reached by various means, by drawing us into a military conflict and making their European allies impose against us those tough sanctions the U.S. talks about today.
Russia has massed more than 100,000 troops on the Ukrainian border, and Western countries say they fear Putin may be planning to invade. Russia denies this, but has said it could take unspecified military action unless its security demands are met. Western countries have rushed to show solidarity with Ukraine. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Tuesday met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv and accused Putin of holding a gun to Ukraine's head to demand changes to the security architecture in Europe. He also warned that any Russian invasion would lead to a military and humanitarian disaster.
And there are 200,000 men and women under arms in Ukraine. They will put up a very, very fierce and bloody resistance. And I think that parents, mothers in Russia should reflect on that fact. And I hope very much that President Putin steps back from the path of conflict and that we engage in dialogue.
Zelensky, who has repeatedly played down the prospect of an imminent invasion, signed a decree on Tuesday to boost his armed forces by 100,000 troops over 3 years. He urged lawmakers to stay calm and avoid panic, saying he had ordered the troop increase, quote, not because we will soon have a war, but so that soon and in the future there will be peace in Ukraine.
President Biden has made worse. If in this situation, all of a sudden you were handed the gavel, you can run the whole situation, what exactly would you do today to fix it?
Well, it's a tricky question because it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. This was not even thinkable. And China wouldn't have happened, and you know what's going to happen with Taiwan now, and lots of other problems.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think that after the Olympics, it'll be a very interesting period of time, because they see the way we withdrew from Afghanistan, the horrible way. Not the fact that we did, because I was the one that got it down to 2,000 soldiers, but we were getting out with strength and dignity and the equipment and no death. What happened is terrible, and the world watched, and they watch our borders where people are flooding into our country. We have no idea who they are, where they come from. And things are happening now that are very bad. I've never seen anything like what's happening to our country.
But let's say right now Biden calls you up and says, I have no idea what to do here. Tell me what to do. What would you say to do it?
You have to project strength.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any respect for our leadership. He doesn't have any respect for our country anymore. They respected our country, and frankly, they respected our leader a year ago. This was not something that was ever going to happen. Supply chain was never going to happen. Many things weren't going to happen. Inflation, when you look at that, you look at the crime rate in the cities, what's happening to Democrat-run cities.
Yeah.
But this was something in Ukraine that was never going to happen. This was not on the books.
Should they go after the pipeline?
Well, I think this was something that Putin would have always liked to have done, but he didn't see the opportunity, certainly not in the last few years.
Yeah.
So Victor Davis Hanson, who's a terrific, I think, historian and philosopher, said, one thing with Trump, nothing happened during the Trump years with respect to Russia. Much happened before, you know that, and much happened right now after, but nothing happened. Frankly, nothing happened with respect to any country. They didn't take advantage of us. We got back in the swim. We made better trade deals. We did a lot of good things, but nothing happened that was negative to the United States.
What's happening is that Russia is opposed to the Great Reset, because the Great Reset is a policy based on taking away national sovereignty. The whole idea that, as it was drafted by people like Larry Fink of BlackRock, Mark Carney, the former director of the Bank of England, Klaus Schwab, Prince Charles, the whole idea of the Great Reset is take away from governments the power to invest in their own economy. And the reason they're trying to do that is because there's such a huge debt overload on the whole world. The world is drowning in debt. The biggest banks are holding trillions of dollars of worthless financial instruments. And they're trying to figure out how to keep the situation going with liquidity. But that's what's triggering inflation. And so they move to the next phase. The Great Reset basically says that central banks will take over not only currency and credit policy, monetary policy, but also spending policy, fiscal policy. In other words, the central banks, who are really arms of the biggest private banks and financial institutions, are going to be given the power that used to be in the hands of elected legislatures.
It's a banker's dictatorship, as you talked about before.
Yeah, a central
banker's dictatorship.
Yeah.
And Putin is like, hell no, this is not, we should all be, hell no, this is not what we want. So Putin's fighting it. And so it's just convenient to go after Putin, because they're going after China, they're going after Putin, they're going after all sorts of, but it's convenient is what you're saying.
Well, it's not just convenient, it's essential for them, because you saw what happened at the COP26 conference in Glasgow. The Great Reset is directly connected with the Green New Deal. The idea that we're going to hollow out manufacturing, we're going to shut down energy efficiency, we're going to stop investing in advanced technologies, and we're going to turn the whole world basically into something that looks like sub-Saharan Africa. And they're going to do that so they can loot the populations. They can create credit, which will be on the national.
It seemed like a potential uprising at the time in Kazakhstan. There was a lot of people were tangling with the military there, and some problems with the police, etc. That was happening yesterday. But a lot has changed in 24 hours. A lot has changed. The president has fled the country. The prime minister has fled the country and the government, and the government has been completely collapsed. It's disbanded. They're trying to flee as we're speaking. The president's son, I think it was, he was meant to take over the secret services as kind of the KGB of Kazakhstan. He's fled the country. Soldiers and military are trying to flee the country, but they're getting stopped by people and protesters, uprisers basically, who are arresting them on the way. I've got some videos of that I'll show you now. The police are getting arrested if they're not joining them. They're being basically, government buildings are all on fire, and politicians' houses are on fire. Politicians are getting grabbed and arrested, or their houses are on fire. I've seen doctors getting arrested and people pulled out of vaccination centres, etc., arrested, which I have videos for as well. So people are just arresting all of them. They've taken over armories, and I have videos of that as well. They're finding mortars, machine guns, and the guns have come out as well. They've robbed all the banks, and it seems like they're going all out. Great stuff. So anyway, contrary to popular belief or what they're saying on the internet through the news channels, or what you'll hear on BBC News, etc., it is not because of liquid gas fuel and the prices that have risen there. That's what they're saying. It's not about that. It's about vaccinations, and it's about the Vax Pass and the need for QR codes, etc. And the thing that finally pushed it over the edge was people couldn't go to the bank and withdraw their money unless they had the vaccination pass and the digital ID, which they're trying to bring in everywhere else as well. And within the space of 24 hours, they've overthrown the government, and the government has fucking fled. So, it's absolutely fantastic. Great news. Great stuff. So I have loads of videos I've got here. I found all this out by going to Russian Telegram channels, because I've been sharing information with people in Kazakhstan. And